Following in the shadows of the sublime Super Mario 64, the original Banjo-Kazooie was initially viewed as a Me Too game. Both were 3D platformers, but those who really spent time with Rare's bear and bird duo knew that it pushed the boundaries, incorporating gameplay variety that was rare at the time. The follow-up, Banjo-Tooie, transcended its awful name to refine the experience. Both games were first system released in 1996, and fans have waited a long time for Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. But do all its parts equal a satisfying whole? In past games, we would have scored the story in a Banjo game separately, but here it's so forgettable and ridiculous that it's hardly worth mentioning. All you need to know is that Grunty is back and you have to collect more jiggies to make her go away. The golden jigsaw pieces are rewarded for winning challenges using vehicles built from parts you find, win, or buy. The part selection is incredible, allowing you to build cars, boats, tanks, planes, and everything in between. There are also tons of novelty parts just for the fun of it, and other accessories like guns that you can outfit each creation with. It's incredibly flexible, and the interface used to build is almost as easy as snapping Legos together. Showdown Town is the game's hub, where dozens of portals lie to the game's diverse levels. Inside the hub, you have one lone vehicle to pilot and upgrade. As you add parts, it gives you access to new areas, and not surprisingly, more portals to more levels. It's a tried and true platforming design. You collect jiggies to open new doors, to collect more jiggies to open even more doors. It does give you some latitude to skip some missions that aren't your thing. There are well over 100 jiggies to collect, and once you snag one, you have to go through an arduous process to add it to your collection. First, you get the jiggy from a dispenser, and then you take it to a collector that will finally add it to your total. We have yet to figure out the purpose of it. There are all kinds of metagames that reward you for completing various fetch quests, but the reward is rarely worth the effort. Aside from the single-player option, you can play some mini-games and races online using your creations, compare your mission times on the leaderboards, or share the plans for your vehicles. None of the extra options will hold your interest for long, but you'll get dozens of hours out of the main quest, not always for the best reasons. With such a robust and versatile creation tool, you'd think that the mission variety would be endless, but you ultimately end up doing three things: shooting, racing, and fetching. Of those three, racing certainly takes the precedent, making Nuts and Bolts much more Diddy Kong racing than Banjo-Kazooie, albeit in vehicles you make yourself. The problem is that there's way too much downtime. While the interface for building is about as streamlined and quick as it could be, it's still not fast enough. It can take a while to create some vehicles, yet some of the missions you enter can last, literally, just a few seconds. So many levels are opened up so quickly that you'll enter a lot of challenges that you have no business taking part in because you don't have the parts to create a competitive vehicle, and you don't know that until you try it. You can play for half an hour and feel like you've accomplished nothing. By now you've realized that there's virtually no platforming in the game. Banjo can jump, attack, use a grapple beam, and that's it. Most navigation is handled by the vehicles. The physics and control feel great for aerial travel, but on the ground it's way too sensitive. Objects have no virtual weight, causing vehicles to snag on the lightest brush with obstacles. The initial wheels available make your car sit way too high off the ground, making it top-heavy and cumbersome to drive. When trying to be precise with Banjo's lifting ray, a lot of things feel like they're made out of papier-mâché. It all adds up to a frustrating experience. The bottom line is, we play video games to have fun, but you'll spend a lot of your time snapping parts together into vehicles that will likely fail at what you built them for. The endless racing from one ring to the next would be tolerable if accessing it wasn't faced with so many roadblocks. Rare has established quite a reputation for getting the most out of any console it works on. While that's not 100% true with Nuts and Bolts, there are few games technically stronger on the Xbox 360. The textures actually look like they have texture. Each world is enormous, and some are so crammed with detail that they can be difficult to navigate. There is some texture draw-in and a few other anomalies, but the tech is definitely up to snuff. While art style is open to interpretation, there's no denying that this Banjo has its own unique look. Some of the characters walking around the world tip the creative scale, while others don't fare quite as well. The classic Banjo theme returns, and the orchestral compositions are heavy on the xylophone and bassoon, setting the quirky, corny atmosphere. All characters speak gibberish, a technique the original games made popular, but many years on, it's beginning to wear at the seams. The writing was much stronger in the previous games, despite all the attempts at self-referential humor here.
Our brave heroes once again stood in her way, and this second showdown ended just as badly for Gruntilda, who really should have quit while she was ahead.
It's hard to recommend Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. It's too complicated for kids and too convoluted for adults. If you're the creative type, you'll enjoy fiddling around with all the parts, but if you're looking for an accessible game that you can play in short bursts and make headway, then steer clear. Either way, the repetitive missions eventually grate, and the prospect of yet another Jiggy is no longer enough to carry on. Banjo's latest is all fan and very little service.